Colorado head coach Deion Sanders is one of the most polarizing people in college football, but does everyone around him have the same goals as him? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs, everybody. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, the numero uno sports podcasting network in the business. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about why I think Deion Sanders may need to really think about who he has around him and if their best interests are helping him and this program succeed, or if they have ulterior motives or are just simply not representing him the best that they should be. We're going to be talking about my portal concerns, what positions concern me the most for Colorado as the portal exodus continues and as the portal gets closer to opening. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Shadeur Sanders' latest start against the Buffalo Bills. There were some bright moments, some not so bright moments, and why I think some people on social media are still hurting Shadeur Sanders even though they feel like they're supporting him. And I'll get there. But let's talk the right people. I think one of the most important things in life people could do is surround yourself with like-minded people who encourage you to be better, who push you to be better, and who really want the best for you, right? I remember growing up, I had a couple of friends where I loved them because they were the funnest times, right? They were always had these really cool ideas of like, hey, let's like play hide and go seek and hide on top of someone's car, or like, hey, let's throw stuff at each other and let's run around your house and do this. But my parents were like, yeah, we don't love that kid because he's not the greatest influence. And it's like, oh, that's weird. And like at the time, you're just like, you don't get it. He's just a fun guy. Like you guys are just old. You don't get it. He's a fun dude. You wouldn't understand. But now that I'm older, I look back and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it wasn't good to hang out with the kid who got in trouble for throwing rocks at a car or throwing lemons at a car, right? Maybe it wasn't a good idea to hang out with a kid who was breaking stuff every time he came over to my house. But like in hindsight, like hindsight's 2020. And so not to say that Deion Sanders has bad apples around him, but I do think that the more we know or learn about what's been happening around Colorado, the more I would say Deion Sanders probably needs to really focus on, or at least look around and make sure everyone around him has the same goals as him, because there's been multiple instances within the past month, really, where it's just like, oh, that's interesting. And I'll run through them. And I think this is why it's difficult to hire people close to you, because they also feel like because they're close to you, they could get away with certain things. And so, I mean, starting with Warren Sapp, as Colorado is losing their entire defensive line to the portal, he's tweeting about a pageant in Vietnam, and he's also tweeting about wanting to get tickets to the Miami playoff game. Like, where is his focus as the portal opens up? Is he locked in? I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I do know that a lot of people were like, really? We lost our defensive line and you're tweeting about some pageant in Vietnam? And some people were calling it a low-tier pageant. I don't know. I'm not in the pageant game. The most pageants I've ever seen was when my mom would watch Toddlers and Tiaras when I was a little kid. So I don't know anything about pageants. I don't know if that was a top tier one or not, but I do know timing is everything, right? He was also, Warren Sapp took some heat a couple weeks ago for basically making fun of Texas football and essentially shooting down a recruit that Colorado had just offered days prior. So there's that. You also have the Tafik Bayard nonsense where you have someone close to the program. I don't think he's employed by the program, or he's not employed by the program that I'm aware of, but you have him sort of discussing where it's like, hey, this guy's not worth what he was asking for because we could get 4 pass deflections and interceptions somewhere else in the portal. And it's like, you're missing the point. Tafik Bayard was a great leader. He had heart, he had soul that no one on this program or no one on this team last year really had. Like outside of him, Julian Lewis, and I'm sure there's a few other guys that I'm missing. But for the most part, it was really hard to watch a Colorado game this past season and just be like, point out a guy and be like, you know what? He looks like he cares. He looks like he's trying really hard, because a lot of the times, like in that Utah game and that Arizona game, you'd watch that game and you go, okay, well, it looks like this guy's not blocking here, or it looks like this guy knows he's not getting the ball, so he's running a half effort route where he's just kind of jogging or whatever. And like, oh, this guy didn't come back on time after the bye week. Like there's just so many instances where it's like you could tell that the players checked out because they could sense like, hey, we're not good and we're not going to play for anything. And so they checked out. And Tawfiq Bayard was one of the few players who not only didn't check out, but he played through a broken hand. Like he was that guy for Colorado. And I loved watching every second of him. So disappointed to see him go. And then most recently, Corey Phillips, as we know, leaves the program. And Matt McChesney, who you guys all know, very, very vocal about his either what he agrees with or what he disagrees with when it comes to the Colorado program. He played at defensive end from 2000 to 2004, all Big 12 selection, led the Buffs and sacks, Now he's sort of a trainer / hybrid, helping players find their recruiting homes. And he the other day takes to social media and says, quote, "I'm so disgusted and distraught with what happened over the last couple of days to find out the university that I love and played for and that I've sent so many guys to play for in the past, to find out that a coach is sabotaging from the inside. Do you know how many good players they've missed on? If I'm Coach Prime, I'm the angriest human being alive. I will never forget this. I'm disgusted by it. I'm professional to move on to the next guy. But I'm telling you right now, it's the most negligent thing I've ever been associated with. They've put emotions and feelings and treated the Colorado kids like they were nobodies." And so essentially what has been the building report / rumor around Colorado is that Corey Phillips, who is now at Memphis, was purposely not targeting players that were associated with Matt, not targeting in-state Colorado guys in general, was kind of going against other recruiting staffers. Like he brought in Caden Salter just because he wanted to be the guy that was the hero that brought people in and stuff like that. And it sounds like there's a lot going on behind the scenes where it didn't seem like it just doesn't seem like everyone in this program right now is on the same page. And I think that's changing. I think Brendan Marion and the guys he brings in will change that because, I mean, I've talked to one of them. He seems very locked in. They have a very strong goal of like, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to establish the go-go offense, and we're going to recruit our butts off. Now, if you had asked me about Colorado's staff from this past season and what they are focused on, I think a lot of them had ulterior motives. I do. And I think we're starting to see this come to light where it's like, okay, we have one coach who isn't focused at all about recruiting and isn't locked in at all. You have another who's possibly potentially sabotaging your recruiting class and your connections because he got his feelings hurt about another instance. Like there's a lot going on in this program. And Deion Sanders is a grown man. He's, I think, almost twice my age. How old is Deion? How old is Coach Prime? Deion Sanders' age. I don't think he's that old because I'm around the same age as Shiloh. Let's see how old he is. He's 58. He is double my age almost. Or no, he's more than double my age. Sorry. I can't do math, which is a hard thing to do when sometimes you challenge yourself to do math and it doesn't work out. But Deion Sanders is a grown man. Like he doesn't need to listen to me. He doesn't need my advice. And I'm not trying to tell him how to live his life. That being said, if he were to ask me, like, hey, Kev, like, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about the people that I have around me or that I'm thinking about bringing in? I would just say to him, make sure the people that you are putting around you are doing what's best for the program and you. Because at the end of the day, Deion Sanders is the face of Colorado, whether people want to admit that or not. This is basically Coach Prime U. If Coach Prime U fails, it goes on his record. It goes on his legacy. It doesn't impact X, Y, and Z, these Joe Blows over here, right? It doesn't. It's on him. Like if Deion Sanders doesn't work out in Colorado, he will forever be remembered for failing at Colorado. I don't think he's going to fail, but that's what he's going to be remembered for. The rest of these guys on his staff, they'll probably get jobs everywhere else. And like Deion Sanders will probably get another opportunity as well, but like he's going to have this blemish. And so I would just urge Deion Sanders to remind yourself that like, hey, you have the most to lose. So don't put people around you who are willing to gamble with your legacy and with your success. That's all I'm going to say. When we come back, We're going to talk about the transfer portal concerns I have for Colorado, aka the biggest position needs, I think, because honestly, it's looking a little scurry at this moment. But obviously, Coach Prime and Brendan Marion are probably going to work some magic. But right now, these are the positions I'm most concerned about. But first, quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. There's nothing like college football, as we all know. And the season, it's winding down, unfortunately, which is the worst thing ever because it felt like it took a decade to get here. But there's tailgates, packed stadiums, chants, and being right in the middle of the energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting the tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I opened the Game Time app to look at upcoming college football games and was surprised at how fast it was to find great seats. Even with the playoff approaching, Game Time has the best deals, and you could find the best deals by using their zone deal feature because you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate all of you for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So do yourself a favor, like, subscribe, follow. We're also, and I'll tell you about this a little bit later, but the ads-free aspect that we're going to be doing, really cool as well. So let's talk portal concerns. I think Colorado's mass exodus is roughly over, I guess you could say. And I'm looking at this depth. I'm just going to look at the depth chart from this past, like the final game, and we'll just talk about who's here, who's not. Right now, the offense, I'm not all too concerned about because you look at this offensive line and Jordan Seaton, unless something crazy happens, he's back. Yaya Atia, he's back. Zarian McGill, work in progress. He's working on getting what is the word? A waiver. That's the word. He's working on getting a waiver from the NCAA that will allow him to come back. So we'll pencil him in at 2 maybe returners right now. And I believe Larry's back, if I'm not mistaken. So Colorado is going to have a lot of you're returning at least 2 to 3 guys, as many as 4. And that's a good position to be in considering they've had a lot of struggles across the offensive line over the past few years. But positions that I'm worried about simply due to what they've lost. Let's go to the entire defensive line from pass rushers to interior defensive linemen. Colorado, Keaton Wade was a senior. Anquin Barnes was a senior. Jaheim Otis is out. He's transferring. Brandon Davis-Swain is out. He's transferring. Arden Walker was a senior. Alex McPherson gone. Torian Carter's senior. So basically, from the last depth chart they had, Quincy Wiggins, Lennon Merritt, Tristan Murrah, and that's it. So Colorado needs an entire new pass rushing unit, defensive line, and they need guys that are physical. They need guys who can simply keep up in the trenches. Too many times this past year was Colorado pushed around, out-physicaled, out-hustled, and simply their depth was exposed. I think the hard part about Colorado this year was towards the end of the season, not only did guys stop caring, but you ran out of bodies. Like you simply did not have enough. And that's kind of what happens when I think they had like 15 open scholarships this past year. And it's like, if I was Colorado, I would have just plucked away at like, hey, get us more linebackers, get us more defense linemen because we need bodies there. So number one position group concern is the defensive line, pass rushers, interior defense line, because I mean, it was a bad group last year. And I know a lot of people don't care about the guys who they've lost because they obviously didn't perform well, but those guys would have been nice depth pieces. I think the problem was, and it reminds me of Deion Sanders' first year at Colorado, where it's like you had all these guys and people were like, good riddance. And it's like, okay, some of these guys aren't meant to be starters at the Power 4 level, but that doesn't mean they can't rotate in and be a body when you need one. And I think that's the problem Colorado keeps running into is they keep banking on one or two guys, and then the rest of the guys are lowered caliber players. And it's like, okay, you're putting all your eggs in the basket of guys who really you have no business putting your eggs in those baskets. Up next, position group that concerns me, linebackers. You lose Sean Myers. You're losing Reggie Hughes, Martavius French, Jeremiah Brown. The only returning linebacker as of right now is Kylan Salter. He's a guy that, quite frankly, we didn't see a lot of him, and I thought he'd be better, but it didn't work out. He's just simply, he was injured. Things happened. Things didn't go his way. Was expecting more from him, but he's the only linebacker that's returning. So only scholarship linebacker. So Colorado really needs to hit that linebacker position hard, because if they don't, I'm telling you, it's going to be ugly. And I think they need to reevaluate. And they just got a new linebackers coach, so that's good. I assume he's going to maybe use some connections and bring in some guys that he's familiar with. And then lastly, on the defensive side of the ball, the entire secondary concerns me. Tafiq Bayard's gone. John Slaughter's gone. I think Ivan Yates is gone. He walked. Preston Hodge should be gone. DJ McKinney's a mystery, but he had a bad season. Tion Parks is gone. So you're losing pretty much your entire secondary. And I think Colorado needs to reevaluate who they bring in on the secondary. I think they need to stop trying to fit a certain mold and just bring in guys who can make plays. It's as simple as that. And then they do need a wide receiver. I know a lot of people are like, they're fine. They have Joseph Williams, but they lost Sincere, they lost Omarion. And around them, that group is very young and inexperienced. And I think they need to bring in a wide receiver or two to ensure, like, hey, we're not banking on guys who we can't really trust all that much. So you guys comment below. Let me know which position group is the most important to you that Colorado needs to target. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Shadeur's most recent appearance and why I think the Browns, I think his future with the Browns is in question, unfortunately. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. And they have live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. They have player props that update as guys heat up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate all of you all for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Ever heard of it? It's the #1 sports podcasting network in the business. Let's talk Shadeur Sanders. The Browns lost again, 23-20. And Shadeur's taking a lot of the blame. I thought he played all right. Not his best performance. 20 of 29, 157 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, led the team in rushing. And quite frankly, the Bills they overpowered him. They were up 23-10. The Browns had a nice little comeback at the end there, and it didn't work out. And I think if you're Shadeur Sanders, your best bet is being traded, because I do think the Browns are going to draft another quarterback. I do. I think the Browns are going to end up with a top 4. Well, it depends, really. I think, let's see. The Browns are currently projected to get the 3rd pick, and I think that's out of Fernando Mendoza territory, but that's right in the Dante Moore mix, because it's going to go Giants, Vegas, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Cleveland Browns. I think Shadeur's best bet, honestly, is being traded, because I don't think the Browns have his best interest in hand. I don't think Kevin Stefanski has put him in good positions, and I was anti this thought just a couple weeks ago, but now that I keep watching the Browns, I just feel like they don't have a plan for him. I don't think they have a plan for Shadeur. I don't think that he's a true fit with the Browns anymore. I thought Kevin Stefanski would sort of work him into the system and sort of help him out. But that hasn't been the case. So I do think it's best for Shadeur if he gets traded, if he maybe sits behind a veteran who, not like Joe Flacco, where he's trying to still play and be a bridge quarterback, but like sit behind a veteran and learn a little bit more and then take over when ready. Maybe another bridge quarterback, but not, I don't know. The Joe Flacco thing was weird. The Dylan Gabriel thing was weird. I just don't feel like the Browns had Shadeur's interest at hand. Or his best interest at hand. So I think Shadeur's future is probably going to best align when he's traded, or if he's traded. I feel like I was always nervous about the Browns getting him because they have a history of ruining quarterbacks, and he's flashed enough to where I don't think he's ruined, but I also don't have enough faith in the Browns for them to make the right decision for Shadeur and his career, because I don't think they view him as a franchise quarterback. And I do think a lot of teams out there need a quarterback. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. You guys comment below. Should Shadeur be traded, or should he stick it out with the Browns? Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.